Hi everyone, I'm Hannah. You're welcome to a very sunny April plot today. It is another installment of the allotment year and I hope you're excited. We are definitely into spring now and it is so exciting. As a reference for those who are new here, my plot is based outside Oxford, UK, and here we have temperate oceanic climate with mild winters and cool summers. And my last frost date is mid-May and I can't wait. So the jobs have been mounting up. There's a lot of sowing, there's a lot of pricking out and all the rest of it. But it was just getting a little bit overwhelming, so I thought I have to have some sort of system to it. So I've themed my days a bit more. So today it was all about the new vegetable area that I made last year. This was my lockdown 1.0 project. It used to be an area of just 9 little beds that were a bit of a, I guess a bit of an experiment for me, just to have like small no-dig beds surrounded by grass. Obviously that was always gonna fail and they always got invaded and I just needed to change it. So last year we were digging out the garden, so I had access to a lot of topsoil. Not great topsoil and topsoil with bindweed in it, but you know, it's better than nothing. And there was no way of getting hold of bulk topsoil or compost. You know, lockdown was crazy, we couldn't get hold of anything, garden centers were closed. So I used the topsoil that I had and scrounging cardboard from all the neighbors, and yeah, I just made it into a massive no-dig bed with no-dig paths as well between the beds. So the beds were 1.2 meters I think and the paths were 30 centimeters. Because it was a new no-dig bed area, there's a little bit more maintenance the first few years just to keep it in check. There's a bit of couch grass still coming in, there's a bit of creeping thistle, a bit of bindweed of course, so that will take a few years to properly get on top of. But really it's the borders I'm a little bit worried about, so I don't want the grass creeping back in. So yeah, I needed to tidy them, and the first step was to get the strimmer out, or the grass trimmer. I actually borrowed this petrol one from my neighbour and it's a little bit overkill. I'm used to having like a small little electric one and this one was very whoa, okay. And yeah, I'm still shaking a little bit from it, but and I'm definitely no expert in using it, so yeah. Anyway, I got the grass cut around it, so I've got couch grass, so it loves growing around the beds I make because they obviously have a lot of nutrients, so the grass just next to the beds are like really lush. But I trim that back, and I hate trimming with a grass trimmer because it just goes everywhere, right? I have a collector on my lawnmower, but this just like just flies everywhere and makes it look so untidy. It'll dry in a few days and then it'll look better, but initially it just makes it look worse. And then I had 2 paths that I never got around to wood chipping. So I went to Asda and bought those 3 for 10 wood chip bags. Thanks very much for everyone who tipped me off on that one. It's much cheaper than the home-based alternative. Still not cheap enough, but at least I got those paths mulched. So I'm really happy about that. What I'm gonna do with the edge is put cardboard. I have lots of cardboard, and I'm gonna lay just a maybe 30 centimeter perimeter around the whole bed area and just weigh it down, and then keep repeating that until I have like a no-go zone around it that maybe I can mulch with more wood chip, sorry, once that's once all the grass has died down. So that's the next step for the tidy up there. But it makes such a difference to put wood chip down on your paths instead of just having them. So that was just clay soil, right? Topsoil. The beds were mulched with compost. I managed to get some compost to top it with, really poor quality green waste compost, but at least there was compost I could grow in it. But the paths, I didn't have anything to mulch them with. So they set, you know, like rock hard clay, and it was quite a job when you had to weed it. I do understand why people hate clay so much if you dig your plot, because that is just atrocious. But as soon as you go over to no-dig, it's not an issue, like, because you keep putting really good stuff on top, and that sort of where you're weeding, it's so much easier. Like, it doesn't, compost mulch never sets like the clay does. I know my plot neighbour, old Tom, like, he's an old Irish fella who's he's in his 80s, and he has this immaculate plot, and he digs the whole thing, right? It's like a billiard table. I'll get some footage of it. It's just like, it's divine, right? But you know, he has his whole system where he digs when it's a certain amount of wetness in the soil. He then rakes it before it gets too dry and sets. Like, it's a whole science to digging that I have no clue about because I don't do it, but he obviously does because he has the experience. But yeah, it's a whole other system to learn, and he deals with so many different things. Like, when it's a wet winter, his soil is, you know, not workable. Like, he couldn't grow his broad beans last year, which he loves apparently, because the soil was too wet. They would have just rotted. So and when I planted out the broad beans earlier in the week, the spring sown broad beans, I noticed quite a lot of flowers coming on the autumn sown, and that's exciting. Though these early ones are probably not gonna form into pods. We'll see. I mean, this depends on the weather a little bit, and we're gonna have cold weather, so we'll see. You know, they won't suffer, but just because you get early flowers doesn't mean you're gonna get early beans. Anyway, they're getting a bit tall, some of them, and they have a tendency to snap in the wind, and we get some gusty winds down here sometimes, and the weather's gonna be a little bit variable. So now that they're flowering, I've taken the mesh off that I've had over them all winter. So that mesh works as a windbreak and takes the worst of it off. So I haven't been worried about them before, but now that the flowers are out and the mesh is off, I need to support them. So what I do is I put a stick either end of the row, and then I tie strings around it at intervals up the sticks, and it sort of holds the plant in place, but it still has a give in the wind, so they can still rock about. And that works excellently for stopping any snapping and keeping them tidy and in one place. And you just have to adjust it and tie more strings when they get taller. And it works for the smaller ones as well, the shorter ones. But the ones that I've tied up now are the Aquadulce long pod. The plants get to be quite tall. It's been a sunny day in the end. It wasn't that great in the morning. I was out walking the dog and stuff, and it was bloody Baltic, but yeah, it warmed up nice. It's like a balmy 28 in the greenhouse. It's always lovely. It's a lovely evening sun here, so yeah, I think the tomatoes will love it. Anyway, I'm gonna go inside now and yeah, get some food. So that's the end of a lovely Sunday, Easter Sunday. It was glorious. It started with a frost, and in this big greenhouse it actually got down to minus 3.1 centigrade last night. The little one only 2.9, so there was a 0.2 degree difference there, and that's quite interesting. So I think it has to do with the size, and something as well to do with that the air inside a greenhouse is still. That makes it colder. Don't quote me on this, but I think that's part of it. But yeah, so it got really cold. All the seedlings are fine, even these beans. Oh, they're really dry actually. Yeah, it's been a hot one in the greenhouse. So I think it got up to 15 degrees or so, and like bright sunshine all day. I actually feel a little bit like I was wearing sunscreen, but I still feel a bit like I've been out. Like if you've been out in a windy long walk or whatever, you feel a bit like worn. So I think I might need to put some nice cream on. That's one thing people don't really tell you, how much weather affects your skin when you're a gardener. But yeah, absolutely lovely, and the sunset has been great as well. So today I had my allotment helper here. I mentioned yesterday about all the topsoil that we dug out of our back garden, and how I used it to build a new no-dig bed. Well, most of it ended up on a mound at the back of the plot that was basically just a carpet of ivy that was just slowly creeping across and taking over the whole thing. So the topsoil went onto there and it's created like a mound, right? And we call it the mound. And last year I just threw loads of seeds, flower seeds, wildflower seeds, whatever I could get my hands on in July, August maybe it was even, because most of the garden centers have stopped selling these kind of wildflower mixes. But I bought what I could and made my own mix, including sunflowers and stuff, and just threw them out there before rain was forecast, and it grew so well. It was so nice. It was like massive cosmos, huge sunflowers, much bigger than any of the ones I tried growing from seed in the greenhouse. So direct sowing flowers, I mean, you have no control really. And I didn't think too much about what to do with it this year. But I did buy all these dahlias, right? I had in my mind that I would make a dahlia bed. But I think it would be much better to utilize that mound as a flower bed. So obviously it's topsoil of like clay soil. So it's really hard. So it needs to be mulched properly this year. And I have more compost coming, more soil enricher. So I'm hoping I can get at least part of it done properly. That will make it quite good, I think, for the dahlias, because it's like raised. So it means that they won't be sitting in waterlogged soil, especially if I feed it with good quality compost on top. No dig really helps with improving waterloggedness or the tendency for clay soil to become waterlogged in winter. So if I do that, I might not even have to lift the tubers in winter. But yes, obviously, because it wasn't properly done, and when you sort of dig out a garden, lots of weeds come with, like a lot of the lawn, big pieces of lawn was like left on the mound as well. So grass has sort of established. So I had my helper here and we really tackled it today, getting a lot of the more invasive weeds out. I don't need it to be clinically clean of wildflowers. I quite like that. But the obvious ones, like the dandelions and stuff that just take over, I'm trying to keep on top of, and especially the couch grass that's like slowly creeping up the mound now. So I need to get that done. And then mulch, and then that's where the dahlias are gonna go out in May. And I'm pretty excited about it. Now that I've made up my mind, like I'm really seeing it. It won't be at the front of the plot, but it will be raised at the back of the plot, so you will be able to see it from a distance as well, and I think that will make it look quite impactful. So I need to plant out my lettuce. They are more than ready to go out. You can see they have 3 true leaves out, most of them, and they'll be absolutely fine. So these are really gorgeous, this mixed variety, mixed bag. So we'll see what we get with that. That's pretty cool. So I don't know if you watched my vlog where I talked about having sown 4 different types of spinach, and 2 I'd labeled the same. I'm glad I kept them both, the ones I labeled the same, because I thought I'd made a mistake there, and I have. Because one of them is this a red veined spinach or purple spinach called Rubino, and it's very obvious now that they've grown a bit older. You can see the purple is coming through on the stems, so I'm glad I did that because they're absolutely beautiful. Yeah, but I have one here, toothed crisp head lettuce, which I don't think is a lettuce at all. I only had one germinate, and that to me looks more like a fennel seed or a dill maybe. So I'm gonna just take some of this leaves off. Yeah, it's fennel. So I don't even think it's like bulb fennel like that I've sown. And they were in a different tray anyway. So the bulb fennel is like much bigger and taller. I think this is English fennel. You know, the one that you only grow for the seed, right? Which is a weed. So yeah, I'm cultivating a weed. Wow, it was bound to happen. So while I have your attention, it would be great if you can give this video a thumbs up if you found it interesting, entertaining, fun. That'd be great. It all really, really helps. The brassicas as well. They're doing really well and they're getting ready to be planted out. So I'm not so worried about them. Yeah, I'm a bit disappointed with my cauliflower. First of all, they were a bit difficult to germinate. I think I actually only got 4 seedlings, and one of them has obviously didn't look well when I pricked it out, and it has not survived now either. So that's a bit disappointing. I might have to sow a few more just to see if I was just unlucky, or it's the packet's gone off. So we'll see about that. So it's a mix of cauliflower, including like Romanesco, white, yellow, purple cauliflower. And I really enjoyed having the purple last year, so maybe I'll just try to get a packet of purple cauliflower instead. I don't know about you, but cauliflower is a bit of a divisive vegetable in our household. My partner absolutely detests it, but I quite like it. And he somehow found it easier to eat the purple one because it didn't look like cauliflower. It looked like broccoli when it was cooked. It actually kept its color. Roasted in the oven, it kept its color. So that was pretty surprised by that. Usually purple vegetables go like grey when you cook them, right? Like potatoes, purple potatoes go grey. Or most of them do anyway. So before I go in tonight, I thought I'd tell you. So I posted about borrowing my neighbour's grass trimmer on Instagram, on my stories there, and I got so many people. I said, oh my god, it's so loud. And like people were like, why weren't you wearing ear defenders? I'm like, oh yeah, maybe I should have done that. I have like loads. And then they're like, why weren't you wearing like protective eyeglasses? And you get a bit lazy when you have glasses yourself. But I actually have prescription safety glasses for my lab work. Obviously it's not the same, they're not as big, but at least they protect it on the sides here that my glasses don't. So I don't know what was wrong with me. Why wasn't I wearing like proper, at least I had my boots on and wasn't out in flip-flops or whatever. I'd gotten so used to my little, very timid little electric one, right? Which is very light, very insubstantial and pretty crap in general, but very safe. It was really actually quite hard to use it, as in you couldn't really do large areas. It was good for like a small garden. My allotment's too big for it really. I just use them to do around the beds really. And then I have a lawnmower for the rest, so it's just the detailing. Whereas this petrol one is too big, too extreme. It's like what you would use to do a whole field going backwards and forwards, and it's too much of a brute to do the detailing, I find, and it's way too heavy to like try to angle. And the grass around the beds grow like a hairstyle, right? So you want to get the whole thing off, and it's just too difficult when it's like a massive strimmer. So I'm definitely not gonna get one of them for my replacement. I'm tempted to go back to electric because I was playing with the idea. It's quite annoying that you do half the plot and then you run out of steam on the battery. But I think the petrol one is just too big. It's just too big for what I use them for, basically. I have a lawn, basically. I don't need a strimmer that can cut hay. Basically, yeah. But I'm very grateful to my neighbour. But, as a very important point, wear correct safety glasses and ear protectors, and preferably steel cap shoes if you're going to use a massive petrol one like this. But it looks like tonight won't be as cold. It will maybe only go down to 4 degrees, so no frost probably overnight. But then the weather, it's not going to get much warmer than 6 degrees tomorrow in the northerly cold wind. So I'm gonna go inside now. I am a bit hyper because I've had a Percy Pig Easter egg from M&S. It's so sweet. It's like white chocolate flavored with raspberry, and it's just super sweet. Yeah, but yeah, I'm gonna go inside now. The sun is setting, and it's time to cozy up with the family, I think. I hope you had a great Easter weekend. Hi, so it's Thursday now. It's been so cold. I just have not had the motivation to go outside. It is different for me. When it's winter, I'm prepared for it. I get dressed and I sort of relish the fact that I can be outside and maybe do the heavier sort of jobs. But now in spring, when I'm supposed to do the finer bits like sowing seeds or planting out seedlings, jobs that don't really get you that hot, you know. I really don't want to do it when it's this cold. It's been so cold since the weekend. So yeah, I've not actually been doing much filming since Easter weekend, right? I mean, we've had snow flurries and everything. It's been pretty awful. Some sunshine as well, and some sunshine as well as snow, which was a bit odd, but yeah, you probably have had the same weather if you're in the UK. It's been all over the place. Typical April, of course. But yeah, so I'm inside now, just giving you a bit of an update on my seedlings. So I wanted to say that I'm finding this year a little bit tricky with germination rates. Some things are doing great, some things not so well, and I just can't really put my finger on what it is. I don't think it's the seed quality, because I've bought great quality seeds. And I don't think it's my compost, you know, because it's so random. It's just so frustrating. As I was speaking to my friend on Instagram, and she has the same issue. She finds things are growing so slow this year. And she thinks it's because it's been quite cold spring, quite dark, quite overcast, and that's what makes the difference compared to last year. I mean, last year, do you remember April was so sunny? It was summer, yeah. That was too hot. Even if it is this cold though, we have not had rain for ages. So I'm actually quite pleased that the next 10 days or so is going to rain every day, because I'm already halfway through my water that I've collected since winter. It's not good, you know, we need to replenish. It's quite often this dry here, which is unfortunate seeing as I don't have water on the plot. But yeah, let's get into what the seedlings are doing in my house. So I hope you don't mind not being in the greenhouse. When I sow seeds, I always bring them indoors to germinate, unless it specifically says that they want to germinate cold, though I'm starting to doubt that, because the ones I've done that for, specifically flower seeds, they're just not germinating. And I think I should have just done what I always do and bring them indoors for like a constant temperature. It doesn't, if they don't need heat, don't put them on the radiator, but just having that constant temperature rather than the fluctuations that happens in a greenhouse is probably better for the seeds and is more likely to give you success. So that's a bit of a shame. I think I'm not going to have any hardy geraniums, I'm not going to have any violas, I'm not going to have any black-eyed Susans, but it's okay, I have plenty of other flowers to grow, so it's okay. Anyway, so yes, indoors I also then keep all the warm-loving plants before they can go out to the greenhouse in May, right? So that's the tomatoes, the chilies, the peppers, the aubergines, and sweet potato, my ginger that, surprise, surprise, isn't doing much. It's not rotting. And there is some movement, possibly I dug it up and had a look, right? But no shoots yet, so, but I've not given up on it. It's a hard one to grow in the UK, so I'm not surprised, and it's a supermarket one, you know, it's the one I got because I was isolating in my house in February, and my friend bought it for me from Sainsbury's, and I wanted to plant stuff, so I planted that. Next spring, I'm definitely buying an organic one, trying it again. You know, it might still work, but we're getting a bit late now in the season. The sweet potato though is doing so well. It's yeah, I mean, I'm getting ready to cut the slips now at the same time as I did the ginger in mid-February. I also got them from Sainsbury's, and not organic or anything. Well, I didn't say on the bag anyway. I didn't even wash them to remove any potential anti-sprouting chemical. I just plonked one in a glass of water, as you would an avocado pip, for example, and one I placed sideways, lying half buried in compost, because I'd read like randomly on a blog that it would be faster that way. So I thought I'd do both, because I had a whole bag of sweet potato, right? And yeah, I can report back. Maybe you watch my shorts, maybe you don't. Maybe you follow me on Instagram. I did a reel about it recently. Anyway, the one in the compost has grown slips much faster. It was faster to make roots, and also then subsequently faster to produce the slips. The one in the glass, you know, it's easier to see that the roots are there, and I have noticed that there is a shoot that's forming under water. So it is a bit funny with the sweet potato. It's hard to tell which is up or down. I don't even know if they have an up or down. Like a potato, you know, there's one end that will produce the eyes and one end that is where it was attached to the mother plant. It probably is the same with the sweet potato, but it's much harder to tell. And the one in the compost, which is lying down sideways, is forming slips either end and roots either end. So I think they're a little bit more flexible, maybe. So I think that's partly why it's better to put them sideways like that in compost. It could also be that they want the roots to be forming in the dark, don't know, or the more balanced level of nutrition that's in the compost could also be the case. Obviously, it works to put it in water, but it is quite a long process to get to the slips forming, that maybe you want to try the compost method instead. However, once the slips have started forming, wow, they grow fast. I'm waiting for the leaves on that one to unfold a little bit before I cut it, but maybe that's not necessary. Maybe I can cut it now. By all accounts, you don't need more than one sweet potato, because one mother sweet potato will produce so many slips, and each slip will then form roots in a glass of water, and then you plant that out. So that will then become one plant and produce hopefully lots of tubers, right? So you don't need that many, right? Because they're quite large, rambling plants. By all accounts, they can be quite big. So just starting it with one potato is enough, as long as you can get it going, you know. And I think around the same time, I started some luffa seeds. So I followed the snipping of the seeds method and then germinating them in some tissue roll. And that worked really well. They germinated really quick, and I planted them up. It started with 6 seeds, they all germinated, but then only 5 actually came up in the pot. And they were sat just under the grow lights, and they were doing well, and then all of a sudden I have probably overwatered them. And I should have been much more stringent with my water. So I lost one. It started going all limp, and I decided to get it out. It didn't look like it was going to recover. You know, if you've ever overwatered a cucumber, you know what I mean. It kind of goes like, it looks like it needs more water, right? But it doesn't, right? So I dug it up, and I could see that the stem, just where the roots were forming, has sort of started to like cave in on itself. So it was rotting, right? So that's what happened. And I was like, all right, maybe that was just a bad one, right? And then a few weeks later, I just noticed yesterday that 2 more were doing it, 3 more were doing it, like the seed leaves were going limp. And stupidly, I just like, oh, I'll just water them. I haven't watered them for 2 weeks. That's probably why. So yeah, that was stupid. So then I immediately regretted it. Decided to get them out. I didn't film this, but I should have filmed it. It was like a panic move. Decided to get them out of their pots and have a look at them. And some of them were showing some rotting again of the stem, but also some new roots forming. So I don't think it's all lost, right? But it's going to be touch and go, I think. So true to form, I've started more seeds just in case. It's a little bit late now in the season, but I think I will learn from trying to grow the plant in my greenhouse this year, even if I don't get any fruit. So I want to do that, at least have an adult plant and see what they do, how big they get, and how I would accommodate them, right? So I want to still try. I haven't given up yet. They're looking all right. But yeah, I need to really not water. They're like, you know, like cucumbers or melons. Like, you don't want to water on the stem. Speaking of melons, so I sowed my melons, right, last vlog, I think it was. And the germination has been really poor. I'm not happy. And I've seen that with quite a lot of seeds this year, and if I didn't know any better, I would have been doubting my compost. I sowed my tomatillos, and they've come up. 3 out of 6 has come up, but my ground cherry hasn't come up. And yeah, it's a little bit hit and miss. Like I've sown some more coriander, and that hasn't bothered showing up either. Like it's this random poor germination. What's doing really well though are the chilies, peppers and aubergines. They are now becoming quite large, and I think I might need to pot some of them on into bigger pots. Specifically, some of the peppers are getting quite tall and the roots are showing in the bottom. Some of them are also producing flowers, which is another sign that they might need a bigger pot, because it's a sign of stress. I mean, you sort of want to stress your peppers and chilies to get those extra flowers because it means more fruit, but maybe you want it to grow a little bit bigger before that happens. And yeah, so I have not topped my chilies and peppers. By topping, it means that once they reach a certain height, 20-25 centimeters like that, you cut the growing tip off, you count 5 true leaves, and then you cut above the 5th leaf, and that forces the plant to branch out. However, they will branch out eventually themselves, and it's sort of a way to control their size or their shape. But if you read about it online, people who've done comparisons, they find this in the end result is very similar. And I also have quite a few of the squat varieties that are much shorter. A lot of the chili varieties are quite short, and I would say it's probably not needed to do with those. I mean, it's all completely up to you if you want to do it. I did it last year, and yeah, I mean, it creates really bushy little plant. But this year I thought I'd just leave them and see what happens. And I think with aubergines, it's quite important to keep potting them on into bigger pots, not to check their growth. I think that's one of the issues I had last year, that I kept them in too small a pot and then was expecting them to perform. So this year I'm planning to plant them in the bed in the greenhouse, and that way they hopefully will grow bigger and have a bigger harvest. So I really want to make baba ganoush, which is this roasted aubergine dip, I guess, or accompaniment. Works great with the barbecue or just dipping bread into, you know, it's lots of garlic, lots of olive oil, lots of tahinis. It's like a beautiful, beautiful flavor. So good. And if I can make it off my own grown aubergines, oh my, that would be so good. What has put on a lot of growth is my dwarf house tomatoes. So they are a miniature variety that you grow on your windowsill. Well, you don't have to, but it is a dwarf variety, so it works well in a small pot on your windowsill, sunny windowsill. You can obviously also grow it outside, but compared to the full-size tomato plants, it's much smaller and will fit into most people's houses. So they were under the grow lights at first. They weren't doing anything for ages, and I was like, oh, because they were maybe sort of being a little bit overshadowed by the chili plants, tall plants. So I moved them out to the south-facing windowsill, and all of a sudden they're growing like crazy. So maybe there's something to be said for natural light, or, you know, I know that that's obviously better, but I wasn't sure how much better it would be at this stage, because it's still quite early in the season, and obviously they don't have full access to the sky sitting in the window, so I was a little bit worried that it wouldn't be enough. But anyway, they're doing really well. And the other tomatoes that I pricked out in last vlog, they're doing okay as well. They're starting to produce true leaves, but I'm a little bit worried that the same thing will happen with these, so I'm contemplating whether I need to move them to a south-facing window as well. But yeah, I mean, they're gonna grow quickly once they get going, so maybe slowing them down a little bit isn't a bad thing, you know. I know that once I get them out through the greenhouse, once the cold weather has passed, they will pick up and grow quite fast. So yeah, it's a little bit tricky. I hope you had a great time watching me today, and I'll see you next week. And this is the end of this week's vlog.